As the regen crisis continues, the importance of first responders to provide emergency medical care is more important than ever before. Unfortunately, with the number of qualified ambulance pilots at an all-time low and preventable deaths on the rise, victims will often wait for help that will arrive too late. Rapid Response, one of the leading EMS contractors, has said that the emergence of regeneration technology triggered a decline in trained professionals, and that it will take time to regrow the pool of qualified pilots. The UEE has recently announced a new initiative in conjunction with RSI that has Apollo ships racing to save all the lives out in the field and create young pilots to enter the field and become paramedics.
Coming in hot. Alright, I'm about 2 kilometers out. Well, I don't care if there's a ballista on the other side of that hill. Is it on my side of the hill or is it not? Okay, just keep the patient ready. I'm landing in a moment. Just keep me safe and we'll get him the hell out of here. Let's do this.
Coming in hot to 4.3.1 PTU and available, which is available to all backers to see, is the Apollo, which can be spawned by owners currently. The Apollo Triage and Medivac are in game, as are their 6 modules. The tier 1 through 3 for the left and the right rooms of the modularized rooms. The ship itself can be changed in the vehicle loadout manager. Tier 1 being the best room, but only has 1 bed. Tier 2 being the second best move, the intermediate, that has 2 beds. And the Tier 3 that has 3 beds. The one to note that because of some recent changes to medical that are coming in 4.3.1, there is a material called Medgel that is required to utilize for regen and for tier treatment of injuries as of recording. And Medgel comes in 200 volume cylinders that can then be filled into the beds. Tier 1 beds can hold 3 of the Medgel containers, Tier 2 beds can hold 2, and Tier 3 beds can carry 1. Again, as of recent testing, not this patch build, but a recent build cycle, it was found that when a bed runs out of Medgel, it does not revert you to another bed. However, I need to test that now on the Apollo, because a medical ship may have a specialized thing. It may have an auto-loading of new Medgel if it's in the cargo, because there is actually a whole wall of Medgel storage for the rooms. I did not, as of this video, test the Medgel distribution, but I do want to go over the ship itself, and it's a tale of 2 ships. So the front of the ship, where we're going to go first, is where there's an elevator in the center of the floor. It's a little awkward, but it's very nice. You'll see what that button means when we get upstairs. And this is my first impressions of the ship. I was quite surprised with this scale and design. It's very, very nice. It reminds me a lot of the crew quarters and bridge kind of combination, if they were together, of, say, a RSI Constellation. And it's not a coincidence it's an RSI ship. You know, the button to get the elevator to function again is a little bit awkward to find. It's right in front of me. It's on that little table, but the little stand thing there. But at first, I was looking for buttons on the floor. I was recently noticed on a Mantis that there was a storage and gun locker that comes out of the floor, and the button was hidden over by the pilot seat up on the ceiling. It was kind of like a pirate's, hold or something like that. But here is the buttons to activate the elevator and also set up the elevator to go back down comfortably without somebody getting bumped into by the big clear glass tube that flies down from the ceiling. Cone of Silence Get Smart style. It's really neat. You'll note this 2-seat bed. You'll note 2 beds with log-out capacity are on there. Right now, the owner of the ship can log out on the ship. But in the future, obviously, the beds won't matter. And that may be up in the air, too, because a recent CIG interview had them talking about that you will not need to sleep in a bed to log out anymore, and then you can just simply log back in where you were. But the bed still will have some sort of requirements. Note hygiene here, which is another future tech that will be required. You have your shower, you have your toilet, and you have your sink. This ship has too many bathrooms. I'm going to go back to that when we get to the back of the ship, but just keep that in the back of your mind. It looks like there's a little food area, either storage or processing as well, and there's also one of Toast's favorite things, a Ben Curtis sticker on the top right corner right there. There it is. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this ship is I mentioned a tale of two ships. The front half is meant for a 1 to 2 person crew, and then the back is clearly designed to be separate. It's meant to be like its own area, like a flying clinic. That once you land, the back of the ship is more important, but when you're flying around, the front of the ship, in most circumstances, is more important. And between them is this engineering room. This room has a whole smash of different equipment, and it's a good thing the Medivac has extra armor, at least when that means something, because there's an awful lot of stuff that if it took a high capacity, like say a size 7 ballistic round strafe from the Ares Inferno, I would not want it to hit this engineering area. Look at all the critical items that are just slapped together in this tiny little pocket on both sides of the ship. Notes the engineering terminal. There's another one all the way in the back of the ship. There's actually a couple of them in the ship. There's like 3 or 4. But most importantly, I want you to note that that is actually good design language, where there's just this lit up handle that you can just tap and it instantly puts you in. I don't see it at this moment, but there, above our heads right now is a giant, beautiful window that's very inspiring from the Connie Phoenix. And it really does complete the look of this area, especially when you're under the sun. If the sun of Stanton is shining upon you from above, it is quite nice in here, especially when you dim the lights. I know, you didn't expect that in a medical ship, did you? But in here, you have a couple different capacities. You have 2 cargo rooms, one on the right side and one on the left side, and they appear to be able to be deployed, because around the sides is like those warning little stickers, like the design language is suggesting that thing moves. And I can't figure out for the life of me on the exterior of the ship how this thing opens. I couldn't find a button. I couldn't find anything that makes sense for this specific thing, but the pad is there, and it's awfully designed to look like it goes up or down out of here. Now, one of the things to bear in mind with this ship is that this may be your only larger ship that you have. And in that case, that cargo area and these gun lockers and heavy equipment storage or drone storage, that might be actually the drone slick storage, we're still not quite sure, are all going to be really valuable for a player, especially when you're using this for dual purposes. Heck, anyone, an organization that has this thing sitting at an outpost in the future, as for its medical, will be grateful to have a little bit more storage. And even if you don't use it for non-medical needs, when your medgel boards finally run out of medgel, because you use that every time you regen or treat tear injuries, you will want that space. Now, this is the Med Bay 1. Left is 1, Med Bay 2 is on the right. And out of them, you can use 3 different modules. This is the Tier 1 module that has a single bed. And this is just for show. I didn't realize at the time. So I was like really thinking like, oh, that's where I store my medgel. No, it's to the left of me. There's a rack of like a whole bunch of shelves that are medgel only shelves. Anyway, this Tier 1 bed is the most powerful bed in the game currently. The Carrack doesn't have it. The Idris now doesn't have it due to a recent nerf in 4.3.1. And you'll note the medgel amount of 600, which is 3 canisters worth as of recording. That could change by live. And I will update my videos if noted, and I will put it in a pinned comment. But as of now, this has the highest amount. But because there's only 1 bed in the room, technically it's like the same capacity of medgel. And also, if you had to have, say, 5 people respawn, this may be a problem if they're all set their transferred their imprints to a single Tier 1 bed. Luckily, even in the smallest capacity, you would have 2 Tier 1 beds if you went and you had one at each end of the hallway. Inside here is the second of 3 bathrooms on board this ship. So they went for the hospital clinic style every room gets its own bathroom for prep work and for the patient to recover and, you know, get themselves together and such. And if that becomes important, it would be nice that patients are not just wandering the halls trying to go to use the restrooms in the crew quarters. You know, like Connie Phoenix lessons again are echoed in this ship for some reason. I'm getting, you know, images of that they've learned their lesson. There's no bathrooms in the VIP area, for example, and you have to go to the crew quarters to use a restroom if you ever had to. And I'm sure that'll change before hygiene makes me important, but yeah. So there is a refrigerator in the room, and then also you saw that screen that's, I think, just flavor text screen that's supposed to be like a medical servicing location. But let's be real, this is the real screen controlling the bed, and the one on the wall is facing away from the beds. In all three types of modules, that screen faces away. So it's okay if the fridge faces away that's full of medical supplies. It's not okay for the screen that's supposed to be keeping an eye on and then the workers trying to check on people is facing the hallway for some reason. I'm not sure why. That's just for flavor. I think it's part of like the idea that this is a more powerful bed and requires more equipment. And I started noticing the lights. This is a trend you'll see in the rest of the video. In my opinion, this low light method, just the auxiliary lights kicked on, is actually quite nice. And if I was running this ship, especially on the fringes of space, this is much more comfortable to me. You know, I showed the room in full bright light, so it's not like I'm trying to pick it apart or anything. But I honestly think this is nicer. And I think that there's a lot to be said for some, you know, just comfort and keeping things simple. Now, there is more beds in the other spaces. So this is the Medbay 2, which has 2 beds. Medbay 2 on the right, which has its tier 2 module in it. So it has 2 beds. Note the med gel is in there. Or is this a tier 3 bed? So let's take a look. Nope. Tier 2. This thing tricked me the first time I saw it too. So in the middle, there's like a little laboratory area for like lab work or something. Also, something I find out while I'm touring this is there is an area that is devoted to storage for each and every bed. So if the area has 1 bed, there's a single storage of 150K micro. And if it's 2, there's 2. Those little green glowing things on the right are actually patient storage for their equipment and things like that. Again, auxiliary lighting I'm a big fan of. And this is the part where I realized there's med gel canister storage all on the wall. So I believe this is going to be a stopgap measure for CIG, because there is a problem with med gel, this new material that they've now created. There's a problem in the sense of when the 400 med gel on this tier 2 bed runs out, or it gets below a certain amount, you will not be able to regenerate anymore. So how do we refill the bed easily on a medical ship that's supposed to be good for that? Well, the answer is there's going to be a pile of canisters on the wall, and I'm going to see if it auto-fills from the wall. I doubt it does. I think it's going to be more of a policy of sorry you died, regen, and grab a med gel canister on the wall and fill back the bed. Thanks. Get back in the fight, you know, or get back out there and working. I think is going to be more likely the situation. Note this again, this small little laboratory area with a interesting sink, very scientific materials and equipment on there. I think it's just for show, but it is quite neat. It is neat. And these modules all come for free with the Apollo series as of recording. So they said they're going to give them out to everybody. I'm curious if future, like after this is issued out and everybody's got their ships and, you know, like 2 years from now, will the ships come with these modules for free? Because the Tally sure as heck didn't come with all its modules for free, but they were trying to sell those beforehand, before it was out, with its modularization. And here's the third bathroom. So I'm curious about that. I hope it's the case that they come with their modules. So like when you buy a Apollo in the store, it comes with all 3 sets of modules, both sides. So it's 6 modules overall. Now, it issued 12 to me, and I've heard other people who've said that they've gotten duplicates, like at least 1 more duplicate. In some cases, too many, or even more. I think there is a case to be made that that is there because there is issues that can be had. If you apply a module, the ship gets stuck, and then you can't, you have to claim it or something. The module may be permanently stuck until the next patch or build cycle. They may have issued out additional modules. My opinion, I can't prove this, but they may have issued out a spare set of modules in case you have that problem, so you can still enjoy your ship exactly the way you want it, instead of having any issues. I think these modules are meant to be enjoyed and meant to be utilized. This is the tier 3 bed. With tier 3 beds, I want to note that the bathrooms don't change. It still has the medical fridge. It still has the that weird little patient control area where they're supposed to monitor them, and the med gel wall. But it has 3 beds, and they're quite busy in there. It's 3 beds in a row. And then on the tier 2 beds, again, you can note that there's a lot of things on there. As of 4.3.1 PTU, you can still transfer your medical clone to any of these. But again, because there's less med gel storage in a tier 3 bed, it is at the moment riskier to utilize, because if you're in a group and multiple people pick that bed just by sheer bad luck, and they don't refill the med gel, you may not be able to regen there. You might find yourself at a big hospital many AU away from where you want to be, right? So that brings up an interesting question. So again, the tale of 2 ships. I'm covering heavily the idea that this ship is designed to be used as a medical clinic style system. And how does it actually integrate? Well, it doesn't have its slick drones, which I keep talking about. There's like 2 or so of those bed style drones that would bring patients through. But it has this amazing ability to feel like a ship designed for deep space. It starts with this window. It continues to the back where its ramped entryway also acts as a docking collar. An RSI docking, a full-size docking collar is inside this ship. And it has its cargo base. Note the the weapon systems on board, which should never be its main topic. But it has a pair of size 4s and a pair of size 3s. And specifically, we're talking about repeaters and we're talking about Gatlings. The Gatlings will run out of ammunition, but the repeaters won't. And the other nice thing it has on the Medivac is a bevy of size 2 missiles. They do have a unique firing system where they fire off the top of the ship. I'll go back to that in a bit. But one of the things that's really catches my eye with this ship is its multi-use capabilities, especially for people that don't have many ships. If you're looking at this video in the future and you're considering buying this in game, yes, it's worth buying in game. I'd also, if the price is not significantly more, this is advice for the website too, I would seriously look at the Medivac, not the Triage. There is currently limited to no downsides to utilize the Medivac instead of the Triage, and it gives you that multifunction capability. You can note the docking collar that I mentioned a minute ago is behind this air filtration thing. I really think that's just kind of a little bit of just a rule of cool. But this docking collar is not. There is a multi-function system in the back here that has multiple stages. When you open and close the ramp, it opens and closes the docking collar, and you can see the docking collar mechanisms in there. Really interesting choice. The ramp is useful, extremely useful on the ground, and the docking collar is useful in space. For the ramp specifically, in the near future, obviously this would be good. I could see you trying to fit like a pulse or something else small in there, rolling up that ramp and just parking it in here in some place, probably a place it shouldn't be, but it is something good. I had Fallout vibes from this docking collar, which is kind of interesting with the flashing lights, and the mechanism is so sophisticated. It's far faster than a vault, but I don't know why, but it made me feel like that. And I also tested, like, if you emergency had to get off the ship, could you secure the ship while you're leaving, which is a popular thing for a lot of players. As for those who don't know, there is trespassing tech now. So the odds of you having to do all that, because if a player jumps on board that doesn't own the ship and is not in party, the game should have immediately apply them as trespassers. But, you know, if that doesn't work, or if that's been changed again in the future, or it's just plain and simple, you're in a lawless area, it is nice to be able to get off the ship from that ramp and not have any risk of somebody hopping up there as soon as you open and close the ramp, unless they ran up there while you're running off, like the exact moment. It's very quick. It's almost too quick for the size of the ship. I guess you could argue, well, it's a medical ship. It has to emergency be able to open up at a moment's notice and get somebody on board, but there's a lot going on in that animation. Anyway, we go through the ship and we go back to the front. And how does it fly? How does it behave? How does it go? Well, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit talking about the size 4 and the size 3 weapon systems. When there is no co-pilot running the turret, or if the pilot for whatever reason has activated the turret while they're sitting on the ground or something like that, when that's not in place, the weapons that are in the turret on top are attached to the pilot's gun setting. So you could group these separately, but if you don't, and you have it in gun mode, gun SCM, then it will fire the upper turret and then those 2 lower weapons, the underslung weapons. And the repeaters underneath are actually quite nice and big. They're size 4s, and then you can see the size 3 Gatlings here on the remote turret. I've always been a fan of remote turrets if they're big enough for the job, because putting somebody in a normal turret, having to run over, fire up the seat and everything, it's cool, but it's not very practical. Note the 4 weapon systems, firing the Gatlings and the energy-based repeaters at the same time when you're not in the remote turret. And for the record, the turret is really useful for a couple reasons, but one of the most fun things, I know that's amazing, right? A game should be fun, is the co-pilot seat would be able to hop into that remote turret, and that would give them something to do. So if you have like a family member or a friend that doesn't play that often, or they don't like flying, and they want to tag along, they're not going to feel like a third wheel on board. They can actually do something. You can go run missions with this thing, you can go have a good time with this thing, go save people, do medical beacons when that's back in, well, you know, all that fun stuff. And most importantly, defend yourself in the process. I'm not saying this thing can take on a whole fleet, but it's got some weaponry, especially the Medivac, and it has the hit points to keep up. It also has an interesting array of size 2 shields, so that's something that's still, I think CIG is still trying to figure out exactly how they want to balance shields and such. The latest explanation we heard was that if you have 2 sizes of shield, so say a size 3 and a size 2, the size 2 would kick in once the size 3 is been criticaled. Is the gist. I'm trying to make it simple. Note the visibility here is really nice. But yeah, so this thing has a stack of size 2s, which is a little unique at the moment. But that might be the way all ships are going. Who knows? The visibility is quite good out of this window. I really like this style. I wish it had a little more visibility, at least above. Or, you know what? Sacrifice above for below. Always seems to be some type of sacrifice you have to make. A slight amount more visibility in first-person view at the feet would be nice, because you're trying to land in an emergency to pick somebody up, as I covered in the intro. Having a little bit of fun. I think it shows... This is me showing how it handles in quantum and in space. I think it really likes being in space. Because of the recent atmospheric effect changes, it's a little more grouchy on the ground when you're trying to spin around the trees. Again, the intro in the first chapter, that wasn't just for fun. It also covers, like, it's a good test of what you know, this ship is all about. But in space, it really feels like it has good legs. And it really shines there. It has reasonably length, but not like the best length of landing gears. I like long grasshopper style legs on the bottom of a ship, so it can really take a heavy, hard landing safely. This ship seems to want to do that, but it has a lot of edge geometry on the bottom, like little fins that are sticking out the sides and all sorts of stuff, even in the landing mode, that seem like they want to hit stuff. So, I'd say it's in the moderate zone of like comfort and landing, and when it gets its drones in the future that are designed to go pick people up for it and then fly back to it, if they work in Atmo and not just work in zero G, that would be really interesting. So you don't have to keep landing. So the ship is actually safer in some circumstances. You don't have any risk of anybody trying to board the ship or something like that from on foot, and whatnot. But yeah, so right now I'm searching for the lighting system. I find it on this back panel, and trying to take advantage of that nice big window. I can't stress enough, I'm getting pangs of Connie Phoenix in here when the lights are down and the big window's taken advantage of. You'll note the different style beds that are in the rooms during this recording. But look at that beautiful panoramic top window. It's such a strange ship. It's a workhorse, right? It doesn't have windows on the sides. It doesn't have a lot of creature comforts other than endless amounts of hygiene. This thing rivals the amount of restrooms that a quasi-capital has. But aside from that, that window is like one of the weirdest, nice little luxuries it has. It is a beautiful ship. Just look at that. I mean, in general, it really, I think I could spend a lot of time on the Apollo. I would love to see an Apollo that's not medical. I would love to see this ship be a baby Connie, or even just like a more, not even a, oh, am I kidding? It isn't really a baby Connie. This thing is like a sport box Connie. Like it's a high speed, low drag, pared down version of a Connie that's not taking any BS. And I would love to see what they would do with this as another Connie variant, in this frame, but treated as like a Connie. So the whole back is changed out. So we have a luxury one, we have an exploration one, we have a combat one, we have a hauling one. I don't know what's really left, but I would love to see it, even if it's just another combat one, maybe, or a general purpose type Connie. And the idea being it's got a less room in the back, but it's meant to be lower profile, more fuel efficient, more of a certain kind of class of ship. It's a very interesting vessel. I've had a long soft spot for Connies. I had a Taurus for a while, and then I also have always had a Phoenix since I could afford one. I didn't have one at start, but I did have one once Coons got a hold of it. When Josh Coons made his changes to the Connie was when I picked mine up. And I've been an admirer and lover of using the Connie Phoenix, and later on the Connie Phoenix Emerald ever since. But I don't know. I could definitely see myself spending a lot of time on the Apollos, and I really would love to see one that isn't 100% medical, maybe just has a tier 3 bed shoved in a corner, and it's more of a general purpose vessel with the heritage of RSI, with all this beautiful new RSI design language mixed in with this old school concept ship that we've been waiting for a very long time. But yeah, back to the backlog. We have the Apollo in game. We are going to keep testing it, and I think the community will determine what the ideal vessels are. As a reminder, the tier 1 bed has 600 medgel as of recording, 400 for the tier 2, and 200 for the tier 3. Tier injuries do require medgel a small amount. As the tiers go up, the more medgel it requires, and as you do regens, it's like 100 per shot per regen. That's as of recording. By the time it hits live, it could be rebalanced. It was rebalanced just recently as this was brought out to the more waves for the PTU, and then it is reflected in this vessel. The beds already have medgel in them, so you will just have to refill it over time. I will do another video covering Medgel more in depth and also testing, like actually using it, dying and respawning and everything. But I wanted to get this out the door and cover in a very exciting moment in Star Citizen history, and in a good way. I think in general, we tend to like skip the good things. You know, a lot of things we focus on are the bad and the difficult. And I think as we as we get closer and closer to a digital Star Citizen, CitizenCon Direct, it's being called this year, instead of a in-person one, I think it's easy to start pouting and thinking, what did we even get this year? And now we're going to hear, you know, a couple hours in a video format instead of an in-person big stage presentation, what we're dealing with as a project. And I'll say my advice again: stay the course. These type of ships that people have long since been waiting for a very long time are getting out the door. There has been talk of multiple backlog ships being released containing the commitment CIG has to the backlog for IAE in November. So if you're trying to get your little calendar going, think October for the CitizenCon Direct. Don't be surprised if there's surprises or price hikes on different ships that are suddenly announced that are moving out of the backlog, or a new ship. And then the big sale is IAE, where all ships are available in November. So be sure to keep track of these things. You know, and it is usually the events are within a couple days of what each year. It's very predictable. So by the time, I think, if you're from America, Black Friday, so the day after American Thanksgiving, November 25th. By November 25th, it will be past CitizenCon. We'll be well into IAE. I think we're going to know the state of the entire rest of the layout for 2025 and wrapping up 2025 and the year of content, and then truly be able to judge it. What was the year of content? Was it worth it? Did the ships that you wanted out of the backlog get taken care of? Did we get the work done? Did we get a playable game out of it? The gameplay loops that you care about, were they impacted? And I'd like to hear in the comments about that. You know, I think sometimes I tend to I talk to a lot of people, but I don't talk to the whole community. And you know, if you're not on the same Discords, or I just don't happen to run into your Reddit post or something about a topic, you know, I easily can miss it. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on Spectrum. I'm not very fond of Spectrum, at least at the moment. So, you know, but I do try to branch out as much as humanly possible. So if you're active on Spectrum heavily, and I haven't run into you on the few times, I do check it probably twice a week. But if I haven't run into you, please, you know, weigh in. Hey, I do medical, and this ship's a piece of trash for that because blank. You know, I think now's the time. The fact they're changing the Medgel totals, the fact they nerfed the Idris's tier 1 bed to a tier 2 bed, speak volumes that now is the time for medical to get balanced. And, you know, the door is open right now. And don't just tell me, tell CIG. Get on Spectrum, get on the topics, and be sure to put them out there. And if you see an issue that's game breaking for you, get it on the issue council, or upvote it if you find it in the issue council already there. This is the time of the PTU. This is how you get things done in this game. See those landing gears? I'm not very fond of those. So this is the first landing I did, and then when I did the intro earlier in this video, the first landing was not very heroic. It's not very superhero landing, so I went for another one to try to accentuate the job a little bit more. But I was still trying to be gentle, because look at all that stuff underneath and I still bumped the side. You see all those edge geometries? When you have the landing gears open on this ship, it just has a lot of crap everywhere. And the ground is not perfectly flat. Not everywhere is a landing zone. And to be fair to be fair, a flying clinic, maybe it's a little too fancy for being on the side of a cliff, a plateau of snow and ice and glacier. Maybe it's a little different. To be fair, this is me testing the elevator. I remember on the Connies, again, the Connies have that forward elevator in the crew area just behind the bridge. It's separated by a door, but again, this is like an abbreviated Connie. I was thinking that elevator often does like a seesaw effect because the landing gears on the Connies are on the back, underneath the back nacelles for the rear bottom engines. And that's a really annoying factor because at some points, depending on the patch cycle, if they blow up, it's very hard to land properly. And also, it wants to bend forward like a duck if you hit the wrong thing. And then the elevator wants to fully extend all the way to the ground, and then it creates like a seesaw effect. The other thing I'm still trying to figure out is how in the hell are these drones going to get integrated in? I think they're going to be on these pads, and these pads look like they want to move. But when you go to the outside of the ship, it doesn't seem like it opens for them. I've been wrong in the past for certain designs, but I feel like I'm onto something that there's something missing here. Maybe that giant, beautiful panoramic window I covered earlier, staring at the sun, maybe that is designed, the son of the Star of Stanton. Maybe the idea is that would be the thing that is opens up. And that beautiful panoramic window slides like a sunroof convertible type thing combo, and then in comes the thing. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because it seems like they want this thing to be like the purification air system that shoots nozzles at you and then make sure there's no contaminants on you as you're entering the bay. So my thought is that I think this is me again looking desperately for that drones system. I think that the medical slick drones are meant to fly in through that opening past the docking collar, and then they're going to slide into that room. The docking collar closes, and then it goes and it does its little cleaning, and then it opens the interior door, and then the drone moves the person all the way over to one of the beds, and then it cleans them up. Why do you want to do all that? Well, because you'll use less med gel. And also in the future, eventually, we will have a situation where you will... Okay, no, to be fair, this is not 100%, but there's a high chance that you will not just respawn with all your gear. So you will have situations where you can't just respawn with your gear on your person. And so it'll be more convenient and cheaper and better for an org, for example, if you lose 3 guys, to collect them, treat their heavy tier injuries, and save the med gel, and they get to keep their kit. And you don't have to tell, all these guys, like, sorry, you lost your kit. We're going to have to grab the blueprints and print out some more. And waste resources doing all that. And then I have to explain to the indie guys why we're blowing through all their stuff just to get some new kit. So that seems to be like the future is going to be, you do not want to die that often. And don't forget, people are wielding heavier and heavier armors. You've got medium and heavy armors. You've got literal suits, atakis and stuff like that. You want to pull people back with all this fancy stuff. I'm not saying you're going to respawn with an ataki, but I am saying like you slap heavy armor on and then you jump in an ataki. The cost of your kit is getting higher and higher. Every single piece matters, even down to the undersuit. Every single piece of kit, even spare magazines of ammunition, it can be a real pain. Look at out here. Let's say you die out here in a fight. You're taking bounties, and you regen. Regen's not good enough. You want to regen with 8 extra mags on you so you can finish off the rest of the enemies and go get your bounty, right? Sorry for the Discord beep there. But the biggest thing I think is, in general, is the docking collar combo with this ramp is probably a future of things to come, especially in these ships where there's so many features packed in and there's so many things they want them to do, where this thing can dock up with a larger ship and act as its medical facility. I think that's also a signal they're making with dropping the single better bed on the Idris to a tier 2 and then leaving it with its 4 tier 3 recovery beds in the other room. I believe that they're trying to signal that this type of ship would wield a single tier 1 bed as one of its modules or two, and then go amongst the fleet and offer its tier 1 capacity to cure the nastiest injuries without having to waste regens and a whole bunch of stuff. And that's where I feel I'm at right now. It's a tale of two ships. The back of the ship feels completely different than the front of the ship. A lot like a Connie Phoenix. I hate to be a broken record, but it is the case. And I'm a big fan of these ships that are split-minded, that do two things really well. And I can't argue with that. The gun lockers are solid. You got 2 hand, 1 hand for all your utility gear, and the ship has 2 loggable beds. That's the one thing I want to note, is that it's hard locked to 2 players currently, but when you don't need the beds anymore to log out multiple players, who knows what the numbers can be. All right, that's going to do it for now. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my long-term subscribers for being here. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing. I'm really pushing for that. And yeah, I wasn't joking earlier. Comment below if you have some thoughts about things I'm missing, or gameplay loops. In particular, this one's focus would be medical, or the idea of having a shorter Connie. Would it actually be useful, or is it just yet another variant of an OP ship in some people's views? And enjoy your weekend while you got it. Take care.